get the broadcast and recording started. And welcome everybody. Let me go ahead and start our program. All right. Welcome to our little getting started presentation with Shanoa Grove. I am not Shanoa Grove. That is my lovely wife who just came down with COVID. So how about that? I got it back in December. Everybody else we knew got it, and she just got it. And we thought she was immune. And she thought she was immune because everybody else we know got it, but unfortunately it gets even the best of us. But she's doing all right, and I'm going to be pinch hitting for her and kind of talking to you guys as we get started. Our main presentation will begin shortly at about 6:25, 6:30. But we're going to do kind of a little warm-up presentation until then. And I'm going to basically take questions from the audience, and maybe mostly I'd like to know, is anybody here have a project they're working on, maybe a deal that you're trying to secure, maybe a lead or a deal that you haven't been able to close? Does anybody have a deal they're working on? What do you got? Gregory. 303 acres.
Yeah, and it's 20 million to get into it, but it could potentially be 500.
Okay, so 300 acres, $20 million. Whereabouts is it?
Bertram.
Bertram. Okay, Bertram. You know, it used to be Bertram. Man, one of my first flips was in Bertram. Bought a house for $12,000. Actually bought a house with a credit card. How about that? And the problem with Bertram is when we were renovating that thing, you know, contractors never wanted to go there because, you know, it was like an hour from the nearest Home Depot. And so if you forgot a screw or a screwdriver or needed to buy a 2x4, it was like a 2-hour round trip to a Home Depot just to get anything. And but, you know, hey, that was many years ago, about 18 years ago, and things have grown, and now people are actually looking at land out there. So 300 acres, you said? Okay. What would you do with this land?
Yeah, it's a little more than I need. I'm actually only looking for like 10 acres.
So you're looking for 10, you found 300.
Yeah. I'm trying to do some assisted living.
Assisted living.
Close to the expressway.
Okay. So do you know anything about assisted living? Have you done any assisted living? You're learning about assisted living. Okay. What are you thinking? Like building an assisted living facility? Okay. So any idea what size assisted living facility you would build or anything like that? Like how many units?
I found this blueprint, and it's calling for small, right? So something that's more like a regular home.
Yeah. So assisted living facilities are highly regulated in the state of Texas. And, you know, converting a home into an assisted living facility, it's one of those plans that sounds good on paper. The idea is you can, instead of renting a house out for, you know, $1,000 a month, you can rent each bed in the house out for $1,000 a week, right? But it's highly regulated. You have to do things like put commercial fire systems into the house, and you have to have staff that manages these houses that are regulated by the state. There's a fair amount of overhead to do it, and by the time you cover the overhead, I have friends that have done that, the exact model you're describing. I buy individual houses, and you know, until you get, I don't know, 20, 30 beds, you're not really getting a cost-effective. It's not worth it. Is what he determined. What's that? Well, I mean, a commercial fire system might cost, you know, many tens of thousands of dollars, but that's not just it. I mean, you have to have staff, and you have to have multiple layers of staff, because you can't just like have a nurse, right? Because if the nurse is sick, you got to have another nurse and another nurse, right? And the nurses all have to be licensed by the state, and it kind of goes on and on and on. You know, and I'm not saying it's a terrible idea, but what everybody I know that has looked at the house model has ultimately concluded is it just makes more sense to build an assisted living facility, a commercial building that has, you know, probably a couple hundred beds in it, you know, better economies of scale. Now, when it comes to assisted living, the other question you have to ask is location, location, location. Like, where would you want to put this thing? I haven't done a feasibility study on Bertram, Texas, it doesn't feel like the kind of place that I would want to put a assisted living facility, but I don't know for sure, to be honest with you. You know, before you go spending a crap load of money building something like an assisted living facility, you do a feasibility study. And there's companies that will do that and say, you know, the demand for a 200 unit, whatever, assisted living facility in Bertram, Texas is X. And I don't know what X is, right? If I were to take a wild guess, I'd say not much, but I don't know, right? And you know, just because you found the land or you like Bertram or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good idea. So, you know, people want to retire where their kids will visit them and things like that. And I don't know if anybody wants to drive all the way up to frickin' Bertram, Texas, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was, the first criteria was it needed to be close to a main road so the kids could get in and out fast.
But it needs to be next to a main city too. I mean, because nobody wants to visit mom in Bertram, Texas if I have to fly to Austin and then drive 2 hours into the middle of nowhere to get to Bertram, right? And it's not quite as in the middle of nowhere as it used to be, but it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, it's out on the edge of civilization, right? You know, so, you know, for now, but you know, but yeah, a lot of traffic to get there, and it's pretty far away by driving. So I just don't know. I mean, I would think about it from this perspective. I would think about, like, if you're interested in assisted living, you know, then say, okay, my plan is to get into assisted living, and I would do a feasibility study about all the different places you could do it. And if Bertram just miraculously ended up on the chart, then great, you know. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be looking there. But I don't know. For all I know, there's, you know, great demand in Bertram, Texas for assisted living. I don't know. But I also say the way the model that works is, and we have people within our network that do assisted living facilities, is you build one of these things and then you sell it to an operator. There's big companies, big multi-billion-dollar companies that own all the assisted living facilities across the country. And they will buy one. It's kind of like the hotel model. You build it, you fill it, and then they'll buy it once you get it to a certain level of operational capacity. They don't want to be in the startup business. They want guys like you to be in the startup business, do the feasibility, collect the risk capital, make the thing, recruit people, right? Get it operational. And then when you get to, you know, 80, 90% occupancy, then they'll give you a big boatload of money to buy it, assuming you did your due diligence, you built the right thing in the right place and marketed it right and filled it up. Have you ever done commercial real estate before? Dabbled in it? Okay. So the trick with, you know, to me, building an assisted living facility, it's kind of like an apartment building with $1 million, but it's 3 times the price. You know, we talked about, like, you have to have commercial fire systems, right? So that has in any commercial building. But then, like with assisted living facilities, I mean, there's a whole thing. I mean, for example, you know, it has to have certain fire standards, right? We're assuming there's going to be old people in this thing that aren't necessarily fast runners, right? So, you know, when it catches fire, you have to make the building out of metal. You can't use wood stick framing. You have to use metal framing, which is more expensive. And the other thing you have to do is has to be designed a certain way where if you ring the bell and you're going to evacuate it, somebody on a walker can get out in under 90 seconds, no matter where you are in the building. So, you know, you can't have elevators and 5-story high. You can have like 2-story high. I mean, it's just, there's just a lot of restrictions in what you can do and how you can do it. Now, there's experts that do that, and they can help design that. To me, assisted living, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10 is kind of a 8.5. It's something pretty advanced, and if I were interested in getting assisted living, I'd probably start with apartment buildings and then maybe move on to assisted living, because there's a lot to learn just in building commercial real estate, let alone building a assisted living facility in commercial real estate. Have you ever raised money for commercial real estate?
I think I'm doing that right now. Could you make me some introduction?
Do so. So we have something within this network called the Canis Major Incubator, and we have over 1,000 investors in it that invest in commercial real estate. And here's how commercial real estate works, just kind of everybody's knowledge. Let's say you want to buy an apartment building for $10 million. So this would be a small-ish apartment building. Where do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do a $10 million apartment building deal? Well, the first thing you do is you go get a $7 million loan, which interestingly enough is not that hard to do. These are agency loans. These are not based on you and your credit, right? These are non-recourse loans. You're not putting your name on the loan. It's based on the property itself in most cases. So you get a $7 million loan, Fannie Mae loan. Now, what's the trick? To get the loan, you have to put $3 million down. That's the tricky part, getting the $3 million down. So how do you do that? Well, you get maybe 60 investors to invest $50,000 a piece. So now you get your $3 million down. So you got to know a group of investors. So we have something called the Canis Major Incubator. We have over 1,000 of these investors that are looking for deals to invest in. So you pitch the deal to a group, right? But here's the other thing, when you're pooling millions of dollars together from multiple investors, you're creating what the government calls a security, and raising that money is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And if you don't follow the rules, you can literally go to jail. Like these are major rules, like big stuff. Securities law, fraud, that's stuff you don't want to fool around with. And for example, I could not put a picture of an apartment building up on the screen here and say, who wants to invest in my deal? I would literally be selling securities without a license, and I could literally go to jail for doing that. You have to have a pre-existing relationship with people. You have to verify that they're either sophisticated or accredited investors, right? There's a process to raise money from people, right, to fund deals. So you got to be part of a network, right, that has people that abide by these rules. You got to work with securities attorneys and things like that. Now, it sounds like you haven't done this before. Is that correct? Okay. So here's another tip. No offense, I don't know you, but no offense, I would not give you any money. And the reason is I'm only going to invest in people that have experience. I'm not going to invest in a commercial deal, certainly, with somebody who's never done a commercial deal before. So you're probably saying, okay, well, how do you raise money then? How do you get into commercial deals? Well, you have to find somebody called a sponsor. A sponsor is somebody who raises millions of dollars and does multi-million-dollar commercial deals. And if you want to get involved in it, my best recommendation is a couple of things. One, learn about it. Number two, the best way to learn commercial real estate is to invest in commercial real estate. If you put $50,000 into a deal, invest in somebody else's deal, you get to meet them and see the project and get a prospectus and follow along. And it wouldn't be that unusual if you put $50,000 into a deal that you'd ultimately get $100,000 back. So you could basically get paid $50,000 to learn how to be a commercial real estate investor. So that's a great way to learn. And then you go out and find a deal. And then when you find a deal, you team up with a sponsor, somebody who's done it before, and you act as the co-sponsor, okay? And then you get to put your name on the deal as a co-sponsor, and now you have a track record, right? Assuming you do that well and make your investors money. If people invest with you and they make money, then what do they want to do next? Do it again, right? And what the sponsors end up doing is they do one deal and two deal and three deal and four deal, and as they recruit more and more people from a bigger audience of people, they're doing bigger and bigger deals, until they're starting with $5 million deals, and then $10 and $20 million deals, and $30 and $50 million deals, and then they're doing $80 and $100 million deals, right? And they grow their network, and with the network they can raise more money and do bigger deals. Assisted living is a unique niche, well, not super unique, but I mean, within the Canis Major Incubator, which is a part of the Texas REIAs, we have people that do storage facilities, apartment buildings, or multifamily apartment buildings, RV parks, mobile home parks, assisted living facilities, hotels, which is called hospitality. So we have different sponsors within the network that kind of focus in all of these different asset classes. And if you're interested in asset class, you need to learn with some experts about that class, is kind of speaking to all of you. interesting you kind of bring this project up. I was expecting you to talk about something residential. You ended up talking about commercial, no problem. We do have a Texas Commercial Expo coming up in a few weeks, and it's free. So for those of you that might be interested in commercial, I'll tell you a little bit about it in a little while. And it's a pretty cool thing. We actually have a bunch of multimillionaire Texas commercial investors from all over the state of Texas that are going to be taking time out of their busy lives to talk about the different asset classes that they focus on. I don't remember if there's one of them that's doing assisted living at this expo, but a bunch of different asset classes, and that's a great way to learn. So you might want to participate in this. So this lead you found, you're looking for 10 acres, you're thinking assisted living, you've stumbled upon a deal for 300 acres. That's pretty cool. You know, what are you going to do with it? Do you have it under contract, or you just have a lead?
Not yet. Someone said that the golf course would be a good idea.
Golf course in Bertram?
And
I don't know.
I understand that you got to give most of the golf course away, but the homes that you build around it would be worth more.
You know, it's been a long time since I've driven all the way to Bertram, to be perfectly honest. But like, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, last time I looked, you know, the last house I bought in Bertram, I paid $12,000 for it. Now I'm sure they've gone up, but you know, generally speaking, you know, golf courses are in higher end communities. Is there a higher end community in Bertram? I don't know. Maybe there is. I have to kind of do a feasibility study on that, just like anything else. Golf courses is a whole niche of its own. And I know a number of people that have built golf courses and gone broke. And high-end golf courses, one in West Austin, you know, is the highest. It was going to be the highest one, open end one of all of them. You know, and ran into major problems. A big one down in Kyle ran into major problems. So I have never built a golf course. I don't know much about golf courses, but I've seen a lot of people that have tried and failed. So it's something. Well, you know, growing grass in Texas, yeah, that's probably part of it. You know, I've actually seen them. They have these fertilizers that are green dyes. That actually, you can dye the grass green and when it turns yellow. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, we're not using the mic today, so because the camera doesn't work on it. So, but what are you going to do with your 300 acres?
Well, first I got to find some people that want to do it with me. So
Find some people that want to do it with you.
talking too much about it.
Okay. So the thing I'm going to say is get it under contract. Get it under contract. Get it under contract. Because if you get a property under contract, there's many things you can do. You can pitch the deal to somebody else. You can terminate the contract. You can renegotiate the contract. It's always easier to renegotiate a contract than to negotiate a contract. If you get it under contract, you have it under control. You can pitch it. You can do a lot of things with it. If you don't have it under contract, you have a lead. A lead's not worth much. A contract's a deal. A deal could be worth a lot, or it could be worth nothing, but it's a deal, right? And nobody really wants to talk about a lead. People come to me all the time and say, I got this lead. It's like, well, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, I don't know. I don't have time to run down every lead that somebody tells me about. Now, deal, now we know we have a seller that's agreed to sell under some set of terms, and now we have to determine whether or not it's worth it, right? You know, whether there's a highest and best use of the asset that would make sense to do the deal, or to renegotiate, or to terminate. So yeah, my best advice is to get it under contract. What would you do with 300 acres in Bertram, Texas? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess you could build a whole community, golf course, something, if there's a demand for it. You know, getting construction loans is challenging these days. Supply chains are challenging these days. There's a lot of things about building that's challenging these days. Right now, Texas is in the middle of a housing shortage. You know, the government in its infinite wisdom is making things worse and not better. You know, back in 2007, 6-5, we had a housing glut. You know, if you wanted to get a loan, you walked into a bank, you say, I want a loan. They'd hold a mirror under your nose. If you could fog the mirror, you got a loan. That's how they loaned money back until 2007. And then, surprise, surprise, all the banks went bankrupt, right? And the money came to a halt. So we had too many houses. And then we stopped building houses. Normally these problems are self-corrected. So then we don't have enough houses. But when there's not enough houses, what do the builders do? They say, hey, everybody wants a house, let's go build houses again. But after 2008, the government passed Dodd-Frank and made it much harder to get loans, right? So we went from anybody could get a loan to nobody can get a loan. So now we need no more houses, and the builders need more money to build more properties, but the money's not available, and nobody wants to work, and we've got supply chain problems, and you know, all of this is manifested into the perfect storm. We're in the middle of the biggest housing shortage in the history of the state of Texas. That's why prices are going up and up and up and up like crazy. So we're about to start the main meeting. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We're about to start the main meeting in just a minute here. What's that?
Thank you for all the awesome tips.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's always fun to kind of talk to somebody in the audience about kind of some project they're working on, and everybody can learn from that, and you never know. Last week I was talking to somebody who said, I found this deal, and you know, it wasn't a deal, so I walked away. And then as I started talking to him, I said, my guy, you have an incredible deal there, right? And I showed him how to get an incredible deal out of something he thought was not a deal, and he actually had walked away from. So you never know, and the best way to learn in this business is to you know, learn from others, and you know, we call that sharing tribal knowledge. I've been a real estate investor for 18 years, been involved in about 1,200 projects, so I learned a little bit about the way, and you know, now I talk about it and help other people that are getting started as well. So we're about to get started on the meeting, and I'm kind of coordinating with some guys online because we're actually streaming the meeting, and I want to make sure we got this ready to go. So hold on just a second if you guys don't